women don't play video games. What do you think? I'm just going to forewarn everybody right now that I definitely don't necessarily agree with these opinions.
That factually is false. Women are now the majority gamers, 65% on mobile, and now 51% on just like overall gaming. So yeah, I think it's because folks get confused on what a game is and only count first-person shooters as games.
I was going to say this though, the behavior of how men and women game, there is some differences there though.
There are, from a high level, yeah. And this high level, because, everyone's different at the end of the day, but from a very high level, they have different incentives of why they game. Women, maybe a little bit more in the cozy space, they like decoration, collecting, that sort of thing. Male gamers actually lean into mastery and skill. So like getting better at a game, those Twitch reflexes, leaderboards, etc.
Oh my gosh, Alina, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm also very excited to be here.
So, Alina, you are in very, very rarefied air because you raised venture capital from one of the tier 1 funds for your studio. I'm curious if you could just walk us through that whole experience and maybe offer us some advice to game studios who are maybe considering raising venture capital or getting a publishing deal.
Yeah, fantastic. So the first thing I want to differentiate is do you want a publisher or do you want a venture capitalist, a VC firm to fund you? Because the way you approach fundraising just from that one decision is going to be very different. And then beyond that is the game or the company that you're building for VC. Is it the term VC scalable? And so in the earliest days, Glossbird, our studio, which is a game studio focused on creating games that make people feel better. So games that promote mental health, physical health, daily well-being, and productivity. We just wanted to build like a dope studio. We just wanted to have fun, and we wanted to build this Animal Crossing inspired exercise game to make people feel better. We at the very early days got into this incubator program for mobile games, and from there kind of realized that like $1 billion potential. And so from there we're like, okay, we actually are really great fit for VC. And so from even the beginning days, while we're very player centric in our game design, how we built the business was to make sure we were building a strong and sustainable business that VCs would be interested in. And so that was really our first few steps that I think set us up for success.
Yeah, that's incredible. How was that process of going through that program? Like, was it beneficial? Give it a letter grade for me and talk about that.
Yeah, so the first program we did was called Free to Play Campus. This is actually hosted in Spain. And fun fact, if you didn't know, Spain is one of the mobile game hubs of the world. And so Scopely is based out of there. King, Candy Crush is based out of Spain. And so that program was really a deep dive into creating a mobile game studio. And I think the biggest takeaway from that program was how heavy data science and metrics and numbers and KPIs were in the process, which for a lot of at least starting studios, indie game studios, I don't see them being that data driven in the early days. And we had to be from day one. So I definitely it was eye opening for me. So for me, it was like a 9 out of 10 experience, and Spanish food. They provided housing. It was really cool. And Glossbird was actually born out of that incubator.
That is super, super cool. Tell me about some of the metrics that you track with your games, like especially the ones that maybe are non-obvious that you wouldn't even think like, okay, they're tracking this.
Yeah. So we have like the classic KPIs. And so we build both mobile games and desktop games, but especially in the mobile space, like how you make money in mobile is like a very simple equation. And Max, I know you know this really well. It's how much does it cost to acquire a player? And then how much does the player spend? And then that delta, that is how much money you make. And so you can make your acquisition costs like very tiny and or make your players spend lots of money, like whatever it is, you just like need that delta. And so mobile games work really well with scale. The best way for mobile games is truly retention. And so tracking that day one, how many players stay on, day 7, day 30, so on, and like that whole user journey. And so that's a pretty traditional metric we keep. A more fun one is kind of like, for us, since we're building games that do more than entertain, is like, are the games actually effective in their core mission? And so for Fitment, the exercise game is, are people actually exercising? Because like if they're off like just shopping or playing a mini game and not doing the exercises itself, that's actually not as effective. Or, you know, talking to users. We do a lot of user studies, and I probably have done like these one-on-one video calls with our players and users, like in the hundreds at least.
That is super, super cool. Was there any learnings when you talked to these players that you maybe didn't expect?
Yeah, the thing that I didn't expect and like really wanted to expand on it and inspired a whole set of game features was we were really targeting specifically for this exercise mobile game Gen Z players. And so those are folks, you know, late teens through late 20s now, and they would pull in their grandparents, which was the most surprising thing. And so they're like, this is so cute. They showed their grandma, and their grandma loved this cozy, very cute art style. And so they would work out together, and the grandma wouldn't download it herself, but they would play together. And so that inspired some things of like, okay, how do we make this more friendly for the senior audience? How do we get them more involved? How do we make it iPad friendly, responsive, and really opened up an entire new audience, which is like really rad.
That is super, super cool. I love that new trend of like the older generations using games to connect with Gen Z and their kids. That's so special.
It's really sweet. And yeah, the senior gamer audience, like as more gamers as we get older, they're graduating into that audience. Like we cannot forget about them. And like a cool story. So my grandmother, she came to the US. She does not know how to read or write like in any language. She just wasn't an educated woman. But she is the most like mobile savvy person I know. She is like going through Facebook, liking everything, jumping through people's photos, spying, and like all, and like using YouTube without knowing how to type. And it's really incredible. And she's also like my number one play tester for usability because she can't read.
It's amazing. No, it seriously is. I love this concept in game design, this idea of show, not tell. People don't have the attention spans anymore to like read a huge instruction manual before enjoying the game. Fitment did this so well, where like I remember my first experience diving right into the game. I knew exactly where all the buttons were. I knew exactly what exercises to do. It was a really special experience in that way. So maybe thanks to your grandma, right?
Yes, yes.
I love it. I want to talk about Fitment more because this is such an exceptional title. And I just think like, you know, the whole idea of combining fitness with gaming, it's the apple of the eye for so many VCs and so many people in gaming. I don't think that there's really been like a fitness game that's really cracked the egg. And I'm not just saying this to say this. I think Fitment is the closest I've ever seen. It is so spectacular, all the artwork. I think it's simple. As you said, it's family friendly. I'm kind of curious though, if you could give us like maybe the top 3 challenges, Alina, and like, you know, what would grow Fitment from like where it is today to like a game with hundreds of millions of players, for instance?
Talking about that formula before, so as a business, it is, you know, we have to make money. And I will say getting people who don't want to exercise is fundamentally a really hard challenge. Right now, fitness apps have insanely high user acquisition costs. I think it is between $20 to $60 to acquire a user on a fitness app. And for fitness apps, that actually forces them to have to be a subscription model, because that's the only way they can recoup if they get that user on for, like 1 month or 2 months and like really force it. If you are a like a low fitness person, you don't exercise, I am not dropping $60 a month, $40 a month on a fitness app. That's really wild. And so the really unique thing about Fitment is we use a very common mobile games model, the free to play model. And so how do you acquire users for it? You need a much lower, benchmark for cost. We cannot spend that much money per user, and then keep them. And so how do you do that when the competition is spending so much more money and outspending you when it comes to like the traditional ads way of getting them? So that's one that's one challenge. Retention is always a challenge. So just like, a lot of it is the first time user experience, initial impressions, and all of that. And then the third one, I would just say like live ops content and keeping it fresh, which, feeds back into the retention as well.
It all makes so much sense. And it's not atypical from other mobile games. Find me a CEO of a mobile game studio that isn't like, I'd like to get my user acquisition costs down. But like, the numbers that you quoted, especially for fitness, are so high. That is exceptional. Like if your user acquisition cost is $60, you're going to need to have this player spend 80 to make it quote unquote worthwhile, or maybe even that's not enough. It's kind of exceptional that way. There's a famous philosopher that I really admire. His name's Ed Lattimore, who's a chess boxer. If you know about chess boxing.
I actually just heard about it recently, but please continue.
He has this quote though that I love, and he's very fit guy, and he says that the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door. And I love that quote because it's so true. We always struggle to actually work out, but then once we're there, we're like, okay, I'm in the groove. I like this. I really enjoyed my experience with Fitment for that reason. Like it was able to get me away from my desk, exercising in my house on a regular basis. Is there something about that magic that you think you've kind of cracked? And like, if so, can you speak to that?
Totally. And like a lot of the things we do, we take inspirations from, other amazing games and products and whatnot. But I would say like the very first thing is the art style. And so the Fitment journey began. So prior to launching Glossbird, I was a startup consultant. So I did a lot of product discovery, a lot of brainstorming. If you're familiar with like design thinking, human-centered design, using empathy for design. So like, that's how Fitment started. Fitment actually started with surveys, a lot of surveys and a lot of interviews. And so some common things that popped up in the survey was, I don't like the fitness apps because they put like a 6-pack model, or there's like this really hot trainer and her body is unattainable. I will never look like her. So even that, people are like kind of getting the ick already. The next one was the workouts are just too hard. Like there's a popular fitness app, and no shade to them, they're great, but like it's like 7-minute abs. 7 minutes is already too much for too many people. And so in Fitment, I think our max workout, we do 1 to 5 minutes workout lengths. Like we do not, there's something about going above the number 5 that starts to like get people like, oh, that's a lot. Like 6 minutes is a lot. And then the feedback loop. When you exercise in a typical fitness app, what is your reward? Maybe it's like a leaderboard. So like, oh my gosh, now you're competing against someone. Like, I don't want to compete. I'm just like trying to start exercising. And for us, our feedback loop is the cozy mechanics of collecting, decorating, getting trophies. It's like that gold sticker in the sticker book and collecting the stickers. It just feels a lot easier and like lowering that barrier to entry.
Yeah, no, totally. You just created like a choose your own adventure novel for me, Alina, because I have so many ways I want to attack your answer, but I want to circle back to Cozy, so don't let me forget. But before we do, I want to ask you about you breaking into the games industry in the first place, right? You started in the startup world in software engineering. I think it's a deep fantasy held by basically everyone in software engineering I've ever met. Like, hey, I should just drop everything and make games right now. So can you tell me like how you got into it, and
Oh
if
gosh.
you have any advice for people um, who are thinking about it for themselves?
Yeah, yeah. And like a very small correction, I actually started in hardware, so I think it was even like a little bit more difficult, but I like the term you use, breaking in, because that's what it felt like. I really felt like I had to like break down the walls to get in. Games industry has like really two sides. It has this like AAA, I would call kind of like a old boys club, and then indie, which is actually really welcoming, really supportive, and I got so much help. And so if you're trying to like break in, you got to start indie, and like that's where the community is, and that's where all like the love and support is. But really how I broke in was using just transferable skills from startups. And so I'm a self-described product mommy. I love designing products. I love documentation. I love kind of like all these standard things, which actually directly transfers into being like, I'm a really fantastic producer. And so being able to like form the team, form the vision, have project management skills, and like just creating a process to create games was really, I would say, like how I personally got in. And then like getting in, I don't know if I'm still in, I don't know if I'm out. I still like even today still feel like an outsider, but it's just like no one is stopping you from building your game. I was working 60 hours a week, I think, when I first started Fitment and Glossbird. And yeah, I came home and worked on it like 8 p.m. to midnight every night, and grinded and got demos out and prototypes out and just built at the end of the day. And now I've built long enough that people believe that I kind of belong here.
Well, I mean, your product mommy culture radiates off the internet. You're one of my favorite follows on Twitter for that reason. You're hilarious, insightful, and I got to imagine it's just an absolute pleasure working at Glossbird. Um, so, uh, changing gears a little bit, and I'm sorry if this podcast is getting a little bit racy, but I did notice that you leaked some nudes online. So, can you talk about your nudes leaking and all that going on?
Yeah, yeah, it was a really weird conversation with my mom too. But I do actually want everyone here to download our Nudes. Nudes is actually the title of our next game slash app. It stands for Niche Operators Orchestrating Desktop Shenanigans. So it's an acronym. And it is a desktop app inspired by, if you remember, Microsoft Word's Paper Clippy. So it is like a mini chaotic desktop assistant that helps you stay focused. And if you're not staying focused, that's when the chaos pursues, destroying windows, minimizing windows, yelling at you to get back to work. It's like truly like the modern Gen Z version of Paper Clippy, and I'm really excited about it.
You showed me a preview prior to this pod of this like cat-like character scratching up this like unproductive tab of my desktop, which I'm just like so excited to use for myself as somebody who like ventures on the internet all the time and is unproductive. This is super cool, and it obviously fits with this whole theme of Glossbird making games that make you better. I'm kind of curious, like, why the shift from Fitment to a new title? Are you going to circle back to Fitment? Give us the lowdown there.
Yeah, yeah. So we got Fitment out to, like, I would say a pre-alpha early access where we're getting a lot of data. We actually had some of the highest retention of all fitness apps, which was incredible. But the big thing was, as far as like, honestly, cash flow, we weren't hitting the scale that we needed to and everything. And so Nudes was an idea from some other members of the team. And the thing I love about our culture at Glossbird is anyone at the studio can pitch an idea. And so this was actually a combo of one of our lead developers and my co-founder. And they were like, remember 15 years ago when like there were like desktop pets and this was a thing for millennials back in the day, and wanted to bring it back as a modern version. And we started talking to players and seeing people like, oh yes, I like, AI is so hot right now, but like the current iteration of AI is really boring. And so like how can we make a really cool, like not like a chat bot, but something just like a lot more interactive, gamified, and lived in for that.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I love how all your games serve a real purpose. You know, they're fun, but they're also like enhancing my life, whether it be fitness or, staying on track. I could totally see college kids like loving Nudes. Is that what it's for? Is the intended audience like college students and younger?
You got it. You got it. Yeah, yeah. We're aiming for Gen Z and even a little younger Gen Alpha. So that is middle school, high school, college students, but like even office workers. So I was really excited. We actually tabled Nudes for the first time earlier this week at the San Francisco Game Dev Meetup, and someone came up and asked like, "Oh, is there timesheet integration? Like, can I tell my Nudes character like when I'm starting and stopping work and doing time blocking?" And I'm like, we haven't discussed that in the studio, but like yeah, I'm putting that in our idea box. So there's a lot of like, I think, fun additions we can do. And so at least where we are in the dev process is we'll be launching early access in the next couple of months, and that is the exact kind of feedback we're looking for. We're very iterative, a very open, like build in public style game studio. And so, yeah, we are starting with the kids, but like would love to add things to make it more useful to other folks.
I love that term you use, build in public. It's a philosophy that I subscribe to so much as well. I notice so much of you Twitch streaming, which I love to like, hop on in and stalk you a little bit as you're developing these games. I got to imagine that this is a cool like distribution strategy for you. Like as you're developing these games, these people develop it with you. They feel some sense of ownership. They probably wishlist it. Can you speak to that, and then maybe some other distribution strategies that your studio uses to get your games adopted by a wide audience?
Yeah. So when I started learning to code, because I came from mechanical engineering and hardware, I started just streaming it on Twitch. And so built a little community around that, like this very motivational, like optimistic community. And then, all of that like translated over to Fitment and Glossbird and now Nudes. And I think the big thing is, it high a great way to distribute and market Nudes? Probably not, but this is where all our super fans come in. This is where we get, a lot of immediate feedback. Like if I am working on a new feature now, I don't even need to like build it and send it to them. I can just stream it and get live instantaneous feedback. And then, I take the recording of it and then like send it over to the devs. And it's really beautiful. It makes it extremely fast paced. Some other things is I love, like, again, the feedback tabling. This is a cool thing about games. I don't really see consumer apps table as much, but going to gaming conventions, going to events, pop culture events, and like showing off the game is fun. And you just like, when you get to talk to people, especially in real life, that's where you really increase the word of mouth. Like, yo, I met Alina at Glossbird, like friends, like download her game. Like she's cool. The studio's cool. It just puts a face to the name. And so like in a way, we're almost tying like my personal brand a little bit with the studio, and it just like builds like a very trustworthy and like cool brand. I think that especially with Gen Z, as soon as they don't trust a brand, they won't use them. Trust is everything for a brand. And then we do the traditional things too, social media, traditional PR opportunities, etc.
Yeah. I am so curious about that tabling avenue that you mentioned. I've never done it before. This is super embarrassing, so don't tell anyone, but I've never been to GDC. This is going to be my first year ever. So give me all the tips. Like, what should I do? Where should I go? What conference is your favorite? Everything under the sun. What do I need to know as a first time conference goer?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, high energy, be willing to say hello. And honestly, so my little hack that I do is I have pre-canned messages that are like saved with my keyboard shortcuts on my phone. And so if I meet someone, let's say day 2 of GDC at like the West Hall or whatever, and they add me on LinkedIn, I instantaneously, with my pre-canned messages, send them a message back. Hi, it was so nice to meet you. As a reminder, my name is Alina. I'm the founder of Glossbird. Glossbird does wellness games. It was great to meet you on day 2 at the West Hall, blah, 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 blah. And then get that sent out. And so when I go through my LinkedIn messages, I can see every single person I met, when I met them, and then like the context, and I might add like another sentence. So I don't know, that's my just general conference hack, because you're gonna meet like hundreds of people on GDC week.
That is such a good hack. Like, I'm writing that down in the notes right now. I want to shift gears again, Alina, because there's some really big news happening in the gaming world, and I want to ask you about it because it's kind of related to your world. Scopely has announced that they intend to acquire Pokemon Go for $3.5 billion with a B. Of course, we're filming this February 20th. By the time this podcast comes out, they may have already acquired Pokemon Go. The deal might have imploded in disaster fashion. But I'm really curious how you think Scopely, this like world-renowned publisher that has their own distinct vibe, would change a fitness game. Let's be honest, Pokemon Go is a fitness game from Niantic.
Yeah. I think both of those companies have different cultures, and this is me as like an outside view and like just knowing maybe a few folks that work at each company. Like Niantic, their big push and like why they are VC backed is through their technology. The I forget, the lighthouse, or like their whole image tracking and geolocation technology, and like doing that sensor fusion of GPS and camera, and like trying to turn that into games, which is like it's cool. It's like they do really cool tech. They also, I actually don't know if I should say it, they've also had some other secret programs and like making tech. Like they are very R&D on tech. Scopely, on the other hand, their culture is like very, I would say, experimental on game design and core game loops and like optimizing, and they're very like decentralized structure. And so I imagine when Scopely takes it over, integrating the tech and like the GPS or other new stuff, I think that's going to be deprioritized, and they're going to really focus on new things. So I'm really excited because they're one of the best mobile game studios out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Scopely, of course, I don't even think it's controversial to say this. I think that they understand influencer marketing and leveraging IP licensing better than almost anyone in the world. Kim Kardashian Hollywood, plus Marvel Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force in 2023, for those of you who don't know, crossed $1 billion in revenue. There's very few games that can say that. So I do think that it could be a good home for something like Pokemon Go, which of course has tier 1 licensing. I do worry about the monetization though, and this is really what I wanted to ask you about, Alina. Scopely is known for these really intense, aggressive in-app purchases, and I have to imagine that those are pretty much always like counter-positional to fitness. Like, I'm trying to work out and I'm hit with a pop-up. Okay, I'm just going to quit, and I'm curious, like, if you found that with Fitment, and if you have any advice maybe for Scopely as they think about weaving in the fitness with monetization of regular games.
Yeah. The walking and getting outside with Pokemon Go is what made Pokemon Go amazing. Because if you wanted to collect Pokemon, you would just get actual Pokemon on your Nintendo Switch or an older Game Boy or emulator, whatever. And so I hope they keep that as the main thing. But it's hard because it's two separate incentive loops. You have the core game loop and the intrinsic need of let's make the person walk outside. That is why they're downloading it. And then, yeah, the whole like monetary, like incentive of like, okay, we need money from them. How do we extract value? I actually think this is the issue. This is now a spicy take from me of where, kind of like crypto and gaming have failed. They started from trying to like, let's make money part of the game loop and like combining these like two separate things together. And it's like, no, you have to start with the fun first, or the reason the player is downloading the game. Sometimes players don't download games for fun, but like to relax, to do like other things as well. And so, but yeah, and it's like also, as a company, what are they going to prioritize? Because with those really aggressive monetization strategies, maybe they do actually pick that over making a better experience because it makes a lot more money. I don't know, but I hope they balance the two. And then actually maybe one more thing I want to add that's like becoming more and more trendy, which is controversial for player bases, is now with the detailed user tracking and like the data science. Some people, when you download one of these more modern mobile games, you get a different experience depending on who you are. If they know you're a whale, they're going to serve up different content to you. If they know they're trying to re-engage you, they're going to do that. But it's now coming to like severely different content. So I wonder if like one type of Pokemon Go user is going to get a totally different monetization style or even like game loop than another. And like there'll be actually like many secret versions of Pokemon Go. And I don't know, that might be a track they take too to try to do the balancing.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. I was scanning the Reddit pages, of course. Just this is where the culture is, of course.
Oh, yes.
And one user wrote, "Oh dear, Pokemon Go is effectively free to play. Marvel Strike Force is very pay to win. Scopely's intense monetization strategies worries me about what will become of Pogo," which I love shortening Pokemon Go to Pogo, first of all. But yeah, it does seem like a lot of people are worried about the kind of things that you're talking about, this targeted pricing, gatekeeping a lot of the core features of the game. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So moving into a segment that we're trying, Alina, I call this Clip It, and it's a game, which we're both gamers. So I'm going to say a controversial statement, and I want you to, in a very short amount of time, 2-3 sentences, either agree with it or disagree with it. This is a shameless way to get my editors to get short form video content, of course.
I love it.
And I'm just going to forewarn everybody right now that I definitely don't necessarily agree with these opinions that I'm about to share here, just a platform to help us frame some of these conversations. But yeah, you ready to start?
Oh yes, let's get me in trouble. Let's do it.
It's not going to get you in trouble. The very first opinion that you do hear, all the time is women don't play video games. So, what do you think?
That factually is false. Women are now the majority gamers, 65% on mobile and now 51% on just like overall gaming. So, yeah, I think it's because folks get confused on what a game is and only count first-person shooters as games.
That's true. That's so true. I was going to say this, though. The behavior of how men and women game, there is some differences there, though.
There are, from a high level, yeah. So I love player personas, and so men and women, and this high level because everyone's different at the end of the day, but from a very high level they have different incentives of why they game. Women maybe a little bit more in the cozy space, they like decoration, collecting, that sort of thing, while male gamers actually lean into mastery and skill, so like getting better at a game, those Twitch reflexes, leaderboards, etc.
That is such a good segue into my next clip it controversial statement, which is this. Alina, I believe that gaming needs to be competitive in order to be fun.
Sorry, I have to laugh at all of these. No, no. That sounds really stressful. That sounds like work. Absolutely not. Gaming, and there should be all types of games, competitive games, but I also think there needs to be games that make people like feel better, relaxed, de-stress, those types of things too.
Absolutely. Maybe for people who have like never even heard of the term cozy, like your studio is like deep in the cozy culture. Can you talk about that for a moment? What it means?
Yeah. Cozy games is a informal term in the industry that basically means games that are wholesome and don't use violence as like a main driver for the game. Typically cozy games are based in that collecting mechanic. So doing maybe like repetitive things. So like resource management. Animal Crossing is like the perfect cozy game. Stardew Valley, you're farming, those types of things.
Love it. Last clip it statement that I want to share here. I believe that game development is just simply way too hard, and you absolutely should not build your own game, especially if you're an underrepresented founder.
Oh, big yikes. No. Okay, actually, caveat. Game development is really hard, but anyone can do it. So, because I actually had no software experience prior, I started with no code development. I started with this tool called Playmaker, which is like a visual like drag and drop like flow chart kind of thing to start prototyping Fitment. And so that's how I got off the ground. And now with like AI tools that can write big chunks of your code, the bar has never been lower to start making games.
I love it. See, I was going to say this. I graduated CS from the University of Michigan, and I loved Game Maker. Did you say Playmaker? Did you use Playmaker or Game?
Playmaker.
Okay,
Playmaker, an add-in onto Unity. Yeah.
Okay, very, very cool. I'll have to try that one. But what I will say is I got like kind of bullied in some ways for using these drag and drop tools because I knew how to code. But they're incredible. And some of the games that you make are so simple that it's like, guys, it's just better to use this like drag and drop thing. And the gamers don't care. The gamers, as long as it's a great game, they don't care how it's made. So.
Exactly. And they're like, I love those no code tools for prototyping. It is a lot faster.
That is super, super accurate. And maybe another question for you is how long does it take for you to like get from inception of like a game like Nudes, for instance, to like, okay, we feel ready to release this. Like we've prototyped it enough, we've tested it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because we like our release per se is like releasing kind of these like batches of features because we want Nudes to be this living product that grows as we get feedback back. And so we estimated like this is about a year of dev time. We're making a custom game engine for Nude so it's able to interact with your desktop applications. And right now we're on track, but that's just for core feature set. So we'll be probably working on Nudes for another year or two throughout early access to get a bunch more things in.
That is super, super cool. What are some of your goals with this new Nudes title?
Yeah. I hope it just like helps a bunch of people stay focused and study. I think getting distracted on your computer is just like way too easy, especially with the multi-monitors. You got like Twitch there, you got YouTube on the other screen. It's too much. So like, of course, the effectiveness of it. But also, I hope it becomes the next like cultural phenomenon. Like I want Nudes to be the next paper clippy. Like, I want to make desktop pets hot again.
I love it. And this is, can I reveal this? Is this
You go for
not for
it.
the public? Okay, because I am so geeked about this. You obviously have a hardware background, and so Glossbird is coming out with a new hardware Tamagotchi productivity helper. Tell me what it's called. Tell me all about it. How did you get the idea?
Oh gosh. Yeah, very early stage, and this is our first time talking about it ever in public, so a little exclusive access for you. The code name is Water Gotchi, and it started with I wanted to drink some more water, and I would just like forget to drink water. And so what I did was I put one of my Tamagotchis, I have like a giant collection of Tamagotchis in the back there, attached it to my water bottle, and whenever the Tamagotchi beeped or like needed food or you had to clean up its poop, I would take a sip of water. And it got me into the habit of drinking water. And so that was kind of the foundational idea. So, like, what if we made a Tamagotchi that supported drinking water is the main use case, but also there was this really great digital pet called the Pocket Pikachu from the early 2000s that actually was a step counter. And like, I don't like, I want to bring that back. So counting steps, drinking water. And then a common thing we get is like your phone is too distracting. There are water tracking apps on your phone, but we kind of want to keep this dumb, a little analog, a little retro, and make it its own standalone thing. And it's, you know, it's cozy, it's adorable. And so maybe my little teaser out there is, yeah, we're looking for electrical engineers, hardware engineers right now, different suppliers, vendors. So like, yeah, we'll be kicking off that project later this year.
That's fantastic. You do not want me soldering anything for you, but I will give you my credit card the moment that it comes out because I do want to raise my own water gotchi so bad. Final couple of questions here. First of all, where can everyone find you online?
Yeah. So if you want to find me professionally, Alina Matson on LinkedIn. If you want to find me less professionally, I am Alina Likes Cozy. ALINALIKES, Cozy, COZY. And that is on X, Instagram, all the platforms, TikTok, etc.
I'll just say this now: you will never regret following Alina. Final question: what are 3 video games that you recommend people play? And they can't be your own. Just start.
Yeah. I gotta bring it back. Get a Tamagotchi. They're re-releasing them. They're getting very popular again. Go out, buy a Tamagotchi. They're super fun. I don't know if you want to call that a video game, but yeah, they bring a little piece of joy until it dies, and then you get very sad. Another one, just like the narrative design. I'm a huge fan of Witcher 3. It's an older game, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Go out, play it a couple of times, see how the story works. It is super beautiful. And then the third one, especially for game devs out there, there is this resource management game called Game Dev Story. I think you can get it for PC, but you can also download it for mobile. And you run a game studio. And the funny thing is, I actually put my games into the game. So I put Fitment in it to see, and like it, like, you know, sells, and like you're trying to like, yeah. Anyway, it's yeah, it's kind of meta in that way, and I love it.
That is super, super cool. Alina Matson, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.